Hi everybody and welcome again to another class this afternoon. The idea is to focus specifically today on the advanced exams because normally at this time on Thursday we have a webinar for the advanced exam, and today, because there are no attendees, my possibility is to do the class online in Facebook Live. So I just want to help with some exercises specifically for the Cambridge exam, to try and show you some of these particular exercises that are very interesting and sometimes problematic and sometimes difficult for a lot of people. So that's my intention, to show some of the exercises and try to do them together, and hopefully everything will be fine. As I said before, the connection hopefully will be good and hopefully everything is clear. Hopefully you understand me, and let's try to do some of these exercises because I think they are very, very good practice and very, very good to learn the structure of these exams, because the Cambridge exams are very important for a lot of people, particularly in Spain, to become a primary school teacher, to become a secondary school teacher, to work in the government or to work in a public job. I think you need a good certificate in English, and for this reason I think that the Cambridge exams are very popular and very important. Similarly with the Escuela Oficial de Idioma exams, they're very popular, they're very important, they're very valuable, and I think they will help people a lot. So my idea again today is just to show you some material from the Cambridge advanced exam to try to make you familiar with the exam. And remember, there are different levels. This is C1, but remember there is a B2 level, which is called the first certificate, and luckily the exam is very similar compared to the C1. So the B2 and the C1 structures are very, very similar. The difference is maybe the questions are more complicated, the vocabulary is a little bit trickier in the questions, and you are expected to have a better answer in your speaking and in your writing. So in the speaking, in the advanced, you're expected to produce a little bit better speech, everything, compared to the B2. So that's probably the principal differences. So some of you are probably familiar with the exam. This book, in my opinion, is the best for me when I teach. It's called the Teacher's Handbook, and it's the C1 Advanced, and you can find this for free online. Just search C1 Handbook for the Advanced and you will find this document. There's maybe 94 pages, but it's really super, and you have 2 full exams in this book, and it's very, very useful and very clear and very, very good. So I do recommend that you try to get this book and try to read it, especially if you are preparing for this exam. The B2 has the same type of book, and it's very, very worthwhile to take this book and to try and read it. So that's normally what I do in this webinar, in this class. I use this book. So the first pages are just little introduction, so you can see the different levels. There is an A2, which is beginners. Then you have preliminary, which is B1. The B2 is the first. The C1 is now the advanced, and the C2 is the proficiency. So the structures are similar with the Cambridge exams, obviously little differences, but today we're going to focus on the advanced. The first pages are just introduction. So basically there are 4 different papers in the exam. You have the writing paper. In the writing paper you have 2 different parts. In part 1 of the writing, it's an essay and it's obligation. That is part 1, and part 2 is a choice, an option from maybe review, report, article, something like this, email or letter. You have 4 or 5 options for part 2, and you have to do one of them. They only give you, I think they give you 3 options on the day, but you have to do part 1 and part 2. Part 1 is the essay and part 2 is the option. Okay, that's the writing. I think you have 120 minutes for the writing. That's 40 minutes for part A and 40 minutes for part B. In the listening, you have 4 different parts as well. Part 1, I think you have maybe 6 questions, possibly 6, possibly 8 questions, but they're very short, multiple choice, different speakers, I think 6 different situations, and you have 6 different questions, multiple choice with 4 options. That's part 1. Part 2, you have a text and you need to insert the correct word in part 2. You need to listen and catch the correct word to put in the correct position of the sentence. Part 3, I think you have to identify what the speaker is saying in the correct paragraph, and part 4 is maybe longer monologue, and you have multiple choice questions similar to the first part of the listening. So that's the writing and the listening. The speaking, you have 4 different parts. Part 1 is just 2 minutes introduction. Where are you from? What do you do? What do you like doing? Your hobbies. That's part 1 for 1 or 2 minutes. The second part of the speaking is the pictures. Okay, so in the advanced, you have 3 pictures, and you need to select 2 of the pictures and answer 2 questions in relation to the pictures. And you need to compare, you need to contrast similarities and differences between the picture in relation to the questions, and you need to speculate a little. You only have maybe 1 minute to give a good answer with that structure of comparison, similarities, differences, speculation in relation to the questions. That is the picture for the speaking part 2, and it's 1 minute. Then you have an extra 30-second question about your partner's pictures and vice versa. Okay, then part 3 of the speaking, it's like a mind map. You have a topic in the middle, you have different ideas around the topic, and you need to have an interaction and a discussion with your partner in relation to the questions. That is part 3, and the key part for part 3 is the interaction, the vocabulary, the expressions that you use to interact with your partner. For example, I agree with you, I have a different point of view. However, this type of vocabulary is very important for part 3, and part 4 is longer questions in relation to the topic from part 3, and it's about 4 minutes for part 4. So very good structure, and the structures are similar in all the Cambridge exams. There are little differences, yes, but the majority of the structures are very similar. So when you know one structure, you will be well prepared to do the other exams as well. The other part that we have not spoken about is the reading and use of English. In the reading paper, in the advanced, you have 4 different reading papers, and that's very, very tricky because the readings are always tricky. You have 4 different reading papers. The first one is multiple choice. The second, the third, and the fourth, they are all different variations, but basically you have a text and you need to answer the correct options for the reading. That's a big, big part of the exam and difficult for everybody. Personally, for me, it is the most difficult part for me to do. I would not like to do this exam for the reading in particular. That is my opinion, and I find it personally very difficult. The other part is the use of English, and in use of English you have 4 different parts. So you can see here, this is paper 1, so we continue down the page. This is page 9 of 94, and you have 1 hour and 30 minutes, so that's 90 minutes to do the 8 different parts. That's approximately 10, 11, 12 minutes per part. So part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4 are considered use of English, and part 5, part 6, part 7, part 8 are the reading parts. So it's very important that you're familiar with each different part of this exam. Okay, so part 1 I'm going to show you now. Basically it's multiple choice. You have a text and you have 4 options, and you need to insert the correct word for each space. So it's multiple choice part 1, and that's your job. You need to select the correct option from 4 different options. The problem is that the options are very, very similar. That is the big problem. So the options A, B, C, D are very, very similar, particularly in the advanced, and more so in the proficiency. The options are more difficult. Part 2, you have an article and you have spaces, but you need to select the correct space from your mind, from your memory. You need to select the appropriate word from your vocabulary. You have no options, you have no list, you just really need to select the correct option from your instinct. Usually it's something grammatical, for example, preposition auxiliary verb, participle, pronoun. It could be something like this, article. These are technical explanations, but these are the type of words that are possible in this part. Part 3, you have a text again, but you have one word at the end of the text, and it's necessary to change the form of the word. For example, you have happy, but you need to put happiness, unhappy, something similar to this. You need to change the word they give you into the appropriate form of that word in the sentence. That is part 3. Part 4 is problematic, and it's difficult, and it causes difficulty for a lot of people. You have one sentence, and it's necessary to write the second sentence with the same significance as the first sentence, but you need to use the word they give you, and you need to use a minimum of 3 and a maximum of 6 words in the advanced. In the first certificate, I think it's minimum 2, maximum 5, and in the proficiency, it's maximum 8 and possibly maximum or minimum 4. So there's a little difference in each exam, but basically the structures are very, very similar. Okay, so here, this book just explains each part in particular, specifies the instructions for each part. So it's a very good book to learn the structure of the exam. Just information this page, and this book will give you more specific advice to prepare, the best way to prepare for part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4, etc. Okay, so furthermore, they give you options, they give you examples. Here is part 1. They have a full test, part 1, part 2, part 3. Okay, so you can see the structure. You have the article in part 1, and you have the options. So you need to select the correct option. Part 2, you have an article, but you have no option, no choice. So you need to select the correct word from your memory, from your vocabulary. Part 3, you have the word, but you need to change the form of the word to make it fit appropriately in the space. And part 4, you have the sentence, and you have a second sentence, and it's necessary to write the second sentence with the same significance as the first sentence, but it's necessary to use the word they give you plus minimum 3, maximum 6 in total. Very interesting, very good exercise, and today I'm going to show you a lot of this material. Okay, so this, as you can see, my video I'm using is FaceTime. At the bottom is the notes that I'm going to use, and on the left here you can see the exercises from the exam. So we'll begin. This is the advanced CAE, and it's the use of English. That's the name of the area. So we will begin with part 1, which is called multiple choice. So let's select the first one, and hopefully you can enjoy doing this yourself, and I can try to help a little. But that's the beauty of this video, of this class live, that hopefully you can try to do this now yourself, and it's interactive. Feel free to put a comment, feel free to write your answer in the Facebook chat, or at the same time at home you can try and write your answer yourself. Okay, so it's just a typical article in relation to Scotland. You don't need to understand every word. No, that's not your job. Your job is to select the correct answer, but hopefully in this class I can try to explain some of the vocabulary, some of the expressions, and hopefully you can enjoy the exercise. Okay, so Scotland, people come, I'm going to make it a little bit bigger as well so you can see it, and it makes it a bit easier. So people come to this small northern country for many reasons, for many motives. Okay, lured, very, very difficult vocabulary. So to lure somebody is basically to attract, and it's typical for the animal. To lure the animal, to a trap. The significance is maybe to attract the animal to a trap, and it's very, very good vocabulary, very advanced, and probably a lot of people don't understand the significance when you read, but you don't really probably not need to understand every word. But here it means attracted to Scotland, perhaps by the promise of spectacular something. Okay, so maybe before you see the options you might have a possibility: spectacular views, spectacular landscape, spectacular sights. It could be a few possibilities, so we need to look at the options. And just to begin, here are the options: scene, scenery, view, panorama. Okay, so let me make it a bit smaller so you can see everything. That's probably the best. So people are attracted, they are lured by the promise of spectacular scene, spectacular scenery, spectacular view, spectacular panorama. Okay, first I want to tell you that probably here we have no article, so normally we say spectacular. Okay, so you normally say a spectacular view, so you need the article, but in this situation we don't have the article, and for that reason I will eliminate scene and view because they are singular, and because there is no article it's not possible. So it must be plural, and scenery is a possibility. Panorama is interesting, but I think most people understand panorama. I think it's the adjective. We normally say panoramic view. So it's like a 360-degree view, and panoramic is the adjective, and panorama, I suppose, is the substantivo. So it could be, yes, it could be panorama here, but it's not very typical. So the best one is the scenery. So when you travel to a country, the scenery is beautiful, the landscape is beautiful, and that is the most appropriate answer for part one. Friendly natives and a vibrant arts scene. So here we have the substantivo as scene, and you need the article similar to the first point in the option. The next sentence, some people, or some in general, are searching for, that's the present continuous, are searching for, are looking for, are seeking. Remember the verb to seek, to search for, to look for. Okay, so here we have the verb to search, which means buscando in Espanol, looking for their family. And again, it's my family, your family, his family, her family, our family, your family, plural, their family. Okay, so looking for their family roots, family race, family basis, family source. Very, very interesting, because a source is una fuente in Espanol. We say a source of information. We say the verb to source your product, okay, to source your material, and it means maybe to locate or to find. And in this situation, it obviously could be a family source, but it's not very, very typical. Family race, well, race is como raza in Espanol, and we say what race, maybe the human race. Okay, that's the most typical example, the human race. And of course, the very bad situation is maybe racism is the subject, a signatura, and the person is maybe a racist. But we have another word in English, we say a breed, which is very typical, more appropriate for animals. So we say, what breed is your dog? And the significance basically is what type of dog do you have? What raza in Espanol. So in English we say what breed of dog. So it's a bit different. The race and the breed is a little bit different. And for that reason, I don't think family race is appropriate here, because the most typical is the human race. The most typical connection here are your family roots. Okay, so the family roots, again, roots are como reitha, I think. For example, the root of the problem. The significance is the basis of the problem, the bottom of the problem. We say the root of the plant. That's the bottom of the plant. And we have a verb to root out a problem, which means, or a person, which means to remove the person. So if you root out the person, you take the person completely and you remove from the equation or the situation. So to root out a problem is very typical. We have another possibility. I am rooting for you, and that means every part of me is supporting you. So I'm totally supporting you. I really want you to do well. I am rooting for you. Okay, so you can have the roots of the hair. Your hair roots are maybe broken, possibly. Well, I suppose nudo is the most typical word. The hair roots are knotted, so the roots of the hair are maybe knotted, possible. And I suppose they're the most typical possibilities and context with root. Okay, and we also say obviously to get, to reach to the root of the problem. Okay, and that is very, very typical. And finally, we say maybe root canal treatment, which is typical for your teeth. If you have a problem in your tooth, singular, remember one tooth and maybe 3 or 2 teeth. So you need to get root canal treatment is very typical. So some are looking for their family roots for this reason, I think is the best. Or others, other people, and remember the difference between another, other, the others, the other. So there's 4 possibilities, and here it's the group. Others just want, they want to get away, to escape from everything, from it all, to get away from it all, to escape from everything. And digging, very, very important. The verb to dig is como excavar. And here it's digging something, old memories. And yes, we have a phrasal verb, which is very appropriate here. Dig off, dig down, dig on, dig up. Interesting. And I don't know what you think might be the best answer, but the verb to dig is excavar. And remember, we have a possibility to give your friend a dig out, which means maybe help or support. Okay, so to give your friend a dig out is the significance to give your friend help or support. Remember in the previous class this morning, I think I explained this family a lot. So we say to dig, maybe a person is possible informal, and it's like to punch. Okay, like boxing. So if you dig a person, that's maybe informal, and it's flexible, I suppose, in English. The other possibility was to live in family digs, and the significance is like to live in a family accommodation, family home, that they host you, they give you food, the family digs as well. Okay, so it is a very important word, but in this context, dig off, dig down, dig on, dig up old memories, and I hope you have a good idea, but the best possibility is to dig up old memories. That's positive, but you can also say to dig up dirt on somebody, and that means that you try to find, you excavate, you try to find bad stories, bad news, bad gossip about a person. So if you dig up dirt on somebody, the significance is you investigate and you try to find some embarrassing or some negative story about that person. That's very, very famous expression. So here, dig up is the best, I think. Dig down maybe is possible in other situations to extract as well, but dig up is just the most appropriate here. From their English lit class, lit I think is short for literature, of gallant heroes. So gallant I think is very brave, very courageous. So it's a good word, gallant. As I said, is maybe very brave, very courageous, very good vocabulary. Heroes, engaging in. Remember, this word is very, very interesting. The verb to engage in is probably the significance to participate in. So you are engaging in this activity, but we have lots of possibilities. You can say the toilet is engaged, and that means it's somebody is using the bathroom, somebody is using the toilet already, the toilet is engaged. You can say the phone is engaged, and that means somebody is using the telephone already and it's not possible to connect to your friend because the phone is engaged. You can say the person is engaged to his or her, for example, his fiance, and that means the man or the woman is ready to marry the girl, and the fiance is feminine, so the person is engaged to promito, algo como promito in Espanol. But if you're engaged, this is the situation before you are married. You're engaged to your fiance or to the, well, I think that's the typical word that we say. So engaged to a person is very typical. But if it's an activity, you're engaged in. And here it's engaged in a struggle. And remember, the significance for a struggle is like a difficulty or a problem. So the verb is to struggle. The significance is to have difficulty. And a struggle is a difficult situation. Okay, so it's very, very flexible. For example, I struggled to wake up this morning. The significance is I had difficulty to wake up this morning. I struggled to complete the exercise. The significance is I had difficulty to complete the exercise. Very important. The next expression is very, very good, very advanced, and the significance, or well, the word is larger than life. but it's very typical adjective for a person. So if the person is a larger than life character, the significance is they are very, very charismatic, maybe. They are very loud, maybe. They are very, there's lots of activity. There's always something happening with that person. It's very larger than life, very famous. And it means they're maybe, as I said, charismatic or very entertaining. Okay, and there's always a story about that person, very larger than life. So very famous, I think. Okay, so that's the context of the sentence from their English Lit class of gallant heroes engaging in larger than life struggles. So it's like dramatic, dramatized struggles. There, something wander to faraway lands. Very, very important vocabulary, because the verb to wander is basically to travel with no real direction. So for example, in the city center, you want to wander. It's like to explore, okay? And it's different from the verb to wonder, which is curiosity. So I ask myself, I wonder what time the football match starts. So the significance is I ask myself what time the football match starts. I am curious what time the football match starts. So there's a big difference between to wonder and to wonder. Also, we say a wonder is something marvelous, something amazing. We say the 7 wonders of the world, and that means siete maravillosos del mundo. Okay, so in this situation, it's to travel, to wander to faraway lands. So the adjective is far away. For example, I live far away from the city. It's an adjective and it's very good, and it means you live a long distance from the city. So in this situation, it's far away lands. The significance is countries that are very far from your home. You can also say far flung places, which is very, very typical expression, very advanced, and the significance is related to the verb to fling, which is como tirar or lanzar. So if you fling the bottle, fling the book, fling the pen, it's the same as to throw. The past is flung, fling, flung, flung. Okay, so far flung places means long distance places as well. Okay, so larger than life, there's something to wander to far away. Their head, brains, spirits, minds wander. So something wanders, it travels. Their minds wander, that's a definite possibility. Their head wander, that's a possibility, but it's not correct because wander is in the plural. I wander, you wander, he wanders, she wanders, you wander, they wander. So it's plural. So it's not possible head because head is singular. It would be head wanders. So it's not head. Brains wander, it's possible. So there's a very small difference between brains and minds, and spirits is possible to wander as well. But in this situation, it's like to daydream. In English, we say the verb to daydream, and the significance is to imagine situations, to dream situations during the day. So in this context, it's possibly your minds or your brains. And I'm curious what you think might be the correct answer here. Okay, so maybe take a minute and try to guess the correct answer. You can put a comment in the chat if you want, and I suppose I can tell you the answer because I'm because I'm familiar with this, and there is one that's just a little bit more typical. Okay, and we would say my mind was wandering, and that means I was daydreaming. I was maybe thinking about something completely different. So my mind was wandering is the most typical context. Your brain wandering, not really. So my mind was wandering is the best possibility. Okay, to somewhere, somehow familiar yet different destinations. Here, yet normally is todavía in the negative. So for example, I haven't had my dinner yet. It's the negative and it's todavía. So I haven't had my dinner yet is very typical. However, it's possible yet as a linker with the significance sin embargo. So in this case, yet has the significance however. So there's a very good example. So they are familiar, however, very different destinations. So it's a contrast. That's very, very important. So yet, as I said, is typical todavía at the end of a sentence in the negative, but also in the middle or at the beginning, the significance is however. And here the significance is however. Okay, so the next question. Why not? go to Scotland. Okay, but what kind of country are they coming to? The people, the tourists. So what type, what kind, what sort? So you have a few possibilities. You can say kind, sort, or type. I'm sorry. What kind, what type, what sort? Okay. What kind of food do you want? What sort of food do you want? What type of food do you want? So what kind of country are the tourists coming to? And what should recommendation or advice, the modal verb should is typical for recommendation and typical for advice. So what should they expect once, when they get or they arrive there? Okay, Scotland, something of an area of 30,418 square miles. So we have possibilities for 5: consists of, includes of, embraces of, comprises of. A little bit tricky. Take your time. You maybe now try to get your correct answer, and that will make it easy for me because I don't have to explain. No, I'm not joking. So if you try to guess your correct answer now, it's the correct moment. Scotland includes of, embraces of, consists of, or comprises of. Okay. Now I can tell you some tips. Includes is never really with the preposition. So we say your package includes free Wi-Fi, or your present includes a trip to the cinema. So includes never really has a preposition. Embraces is almost the same. We never really have a preposition with embrace. You embrace the situation, you embrace your friend, you embrace the problem. So there's no preposition typical with embrace, and it's not possible because here we have the preposition, and the preposition is of. Okay, but the confusion is it is possible it comprises of. That is definitely possible, and it's also surely and definitely possible consists of. Okay, so the two of them are possible and they're very, very similar, but in this context I hope you have selected the best one, and I think the best one here is consists of. I could be wrong, I definitely could be wrong because they're very, very similar, but my instinct, I have a feeling, we also say my hunch or my instinct or my gut feeling is that it is consists of. Okay, because you have a phrasal verb as well, made up of, and the significance is consists of, is a phrasal verb, made up of. And I think here it's definitely tricky because the two of them are very, very possible. I'm not sure. I'm not totally sure. I would say consist, but I'm not 100% sure. Okay, so it's a fairly compact and doable country. So fairly is very interesting. I'm sorry for this, always moving. Fairly is very, very good because fair is como justo, and we normally say fair treatment, for example. That's possible, but you could say to share the money fairly, which means equally. That's the first significance, like the adverb justamente. But the second possibility is like bastante, so fairly happy has the significance quite happy. You can also say rather happy. So there are 2 or 3 possibilities with the same significance, like bastante in Espanol. So fairly happy has the significance quite happy or rather happy. Okay, and here it's exactly the same. So it's bastante, it's quite compact, rather compact. And remember, rather, we have 3 possibilities. I would rather has the significance I would prefer. You could say rather than, which has the significance en lugar de, instead of. And the third possibility is rather plus the adjective, which is bastante. So there are 3 typical situations with rather. And also the next word is interesting, doable. For example, able is the suffix in relation to ability. So you have the ability to do it. If something is doable, we maybe say achievable. So it's possible, you have the ability to achieve it. You can say likable, the person or the place is very likeable. So that's a typical suffix when you have the ability to like, you have the ability to achieve, and you have the ability to do. So the travel is doable, it's possible to do. With a population of about 5 million, not too small, not too big, it's perfect. It is one of, this structure, one of is very, very important because you always need the plural, and here we have the plural country. So this structure, one of, is very typical and very important. Today is one of the best days of the year for the weather. So that structure, one of, you need the plural, one of the three countries that form the political something called Great Britain. The political entity, the political entry, the political entitle, and the political entirety. Maybe a bit tricky. But again, take your time and try to guess or to select the correct answer. Okay, so we have a few possibilities. We say the entire week, so entire is the adjective, but then the substantivo is the entirety of the week, and that's the substantivo, the noun, the entirety of the week, entire week. So you have 2 or 3 possibilities, and the adverb is entirely. For example, you are entirely happy, you are entirely content, and it means completely, absolutely, totally. So that's the significance of this. The next one is to be entitled, very, very famous, very, very important, very good quality. The significance means you have the right or you have the permission to do something. So you are entitled to apply for the discount. You are entitled for an upgrade to your mobile phone. You have the right, you have the permission, you are allowed to do it. So it is very, very important. So in this context, I don't think it's the most appropriate. Entry is very, very similar to the entrance. There's no real difference, the entrance to the building, the entry to the building. But again, in this context, a political entry, a political entitle, and a political entirety, not really good. So the process of elimination, we are left with entity. So an entity is like a business, the entity is like an organization, it's like a group, and a political entity, I suppose, has the significance a political union, a political group, a political body, a political organization. So a political entity, I feel, is the best option for me. You might have a different option, and that's fine. You can select your different option, and we will find at the end who is closest or who is correct. Okay, called Great Britain. The other two being, of course, England and Wales, along with, so that's just the same really as with, but along with is just maybe more emphasis, their fourth partner, Northern Ireland. Okay, so this you have to be careful because we say first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth. So you need to be very clear, especially at the advanced level, between the differences of first, second, third, fourth, fifth, etc. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's just fourth. Okay, partner becomes the United Kingdom. Scotland, here's the subject. The verb to be is bordered. I think that's the adjective, or it could be the participle, because the border in Espanol is más frontera. Okay, because in English you can say the frontier, but it's a little old-fashioned. It's a little less common. The border is the most typical, and it's very important. It is also a verb to border. For example, Ireland has no border, or maybe Northern Ireland, or maybe England borders Wales. So it is possible a verb to border. Okay, and we use it in situations for people as well. You are bordering on rude. That's a very famous structure. So the significance means you are almost being very, very maleducado, rude, impolite. So you are bordering on rude. So your behavior is at the limit. Okay, you're pushing the limit, you're pushing your look, and you are bordering on rude. Okay, so that's a very good expression. So in this situation, Scotland is bordered on 3 sides by water, and on its fourth, so this is the possession, my first, my second, your first, etc., by England, which, that's the relative pronoun, has had, that's the present perfect. Remember, has had, present perfect, past perfect, had, both its advantages and disadvantages. Okay, again, possessive adjective, my advantages, your advantages, but because it's the country, in English we say its and not his, not hers. No, advantages and disadvantages. Geographically speaking, that's a very good linker, very good structure, very advanced, and you could say this in other situations. Geographically is the topic. You can change the topic. You could say maybe romantically speaking. You could say technologically speaking. So there's a few possibilities, and it's a good, advanced, cohesive structure. The country is the subject. Can is the ability. So the country has the ability. Be divided, that's the passivo, because you have the verb to be plus the participle. Divided is very typical with the preposition into. You divide the chocolate cake into 6 pieces, and the country can be, it has the ability to be separated, to be divided into 3 broad areas. Very, very difficult, but very important word. Broad is like amplio. Okay, in America they say Broadway, so that means the street or the road or the way that is very, very amplio. Okay, we have the verb to broaden your mind, which basically means to widen or to open your mind. So we say to widen, to open. Very, very good. You can say broad experience. You have broad experience, that's possible. And you can also say broad shoulders. So you have broad shoulders, and the significance, you are very big, you are very, very strong, or maybe you can tolerate a lot of criticism, or you can tolerate a lot of pressure. You have broad shoulders, you're very big. Okay, good. So 3, broad is like general. So you can say broadly speaking, which means maybe generally speaking. Okay, and that means the southern uplands, the central lowlands, and the highlands. Although, aunque in Espanol, rugged, very, very difficult vocabulary. Rugged is like very rough. Okay, rugged person. It's like very rough. It's like disorganized, untidy. So the landscape or the highland is like very wild, almost salvaje, very, very wild. Okay, so rugged highlands. Something about 2/3 of the land area. Take out, take in, take up, take off. Very, very interesting question. Very, very interesting options. 4 phrasal verbs. Okay, take out is maybe in the restaurant. Take away, which is almost the same. Okay, take out, take away. Also, it's like to assassinate. So in the military, in the army, or in other situations, if you take out a person, it really means maybe to assassinate, to kill, or it could be in a sporting situation to remove the player from the game. It's very cynical. So to take out is to assassinate or to remove, I think, from the situation. Okay, so that is important. Take in is like the sponge with 2 possibilities. So you are in the class today, this is the webinar, and you have a lot of information to take in. Okay, so it's like to absorb. So there's a lot of information to take in, to absorb. The second possibility is to accommodate. So the hotel will take you in, they will accommodate you. They are very busy, they are very full, but they have maybe 1 room and they will take you in, they will accommodate you. Okay, so that's possible as well. Take up is very, very important, and the typical is with starting a hobby. So if you take up a hobby, you start a hobby for the first time. That's the first possibility. For example, the vaccine. People are taking up the offer of a vaccine, and that means people are accepting, people are taking up, they are accepting the offer of a vaccine. And finally, the third possibility with take up, and it's very appropriate for this question. For example, I am taking up a lot of space on the sofa, and that really means to occupy. Okay, so I am occupying a lot of space on the sofa. I am taking up a lot of space on the sofa. So in that context, to occupy, this is the most appropriate answer. So the highlands, the rugged or wild highlands, take up, they occupy about 2/3 of the land area. Okay, the something majority of the population, the expansive, the vast, the expanding, and the spacious. So take your time, try to read the sentence. The something majority of the population lives in the central belt. Belt is como cinturón, I think. So cinturón is the belt. Okay, we say seat belt. We say the verb to fasten your belt, which means maybe poner, and we also say to tighten your belt. So very, very important vocabulary, because tight is apretado. Creo que adjetivo tight It's como apretado, but the verb is to tighten. And the expression to tighten your belt is a metaphor for financial situations. When you need to be more careful with your money, you need to be watching your budget, you need to be careful what you spend in those situations. People are tightening their belt because they have to take more care with the money that they are spending. So to tighten your belt is a famous expression for economics, for business, for families, and typical vocabulary. Okay, the seat belt is for the car, for the aeroplane. Fasten is the verb to close your belt. Okay, so there is very, very important vocabulary. So here, it depends what you think. For me, I have the answer, so I'm doing very, very well. And for population is the context, the majority of the population. So is it most typical expanding majority, spacious majority, vast majority, expansive majority? So for population, we might say expansive, but because it's majority, the best one is the vast majority. That's a very, very typical combination. The vast majority of people, the vast majority of the country, the vast majority of the population. That's the best option. And now we have completed part one, and it's a big possibility we have a few errors, of course. Let's check. Okay, that's very unusual because we have everything correct. Very unusual. So that's a good exercise. Remember, that's only part one. You have 4 parts of the use of English in the exam, and in the exam you have maybe on average 10, 11 minutes to complete that exercise. But no problem, it's just to show you a little. Remember, the next exercise is part 2, and here is the book again. So part 1 is this, part 2 is the article on the left. You have the text, and you need to select from your memory, from your vocabulary, the most appropriate word. It could be pronoun, it could be preposition, it could be auxiliary verb, it could be participle. It's usually a grammatical issue. It's not really vocabulary, it's more grammatical issue, relative pronoun, who, which, what, when, where, etc. So that's the idea here, and this is called part 2, the open close. So let's try this first part. So the topic is an ugly habit. Ugly is like feio, okay? The opposite is maybe pretty or gorgeous or beautiful, but something is ugly. And here we have the letter N, and I'm curious if you know the reason why we say AN and not A. And the reason, of course, is because the word begins with a vowel, and the vowels that are typical are I, A, E, I, O, U. So they're the typical vowels, vocals in Espanol. So in English it's A, E, I, O, U. They are the vowels. And because the word begins with a vowel, it's necessary the article AN. So smoking, subject, is one of, remember the structure one of, you need the plural, habits. Because it's a structure one of, you need the plural, habits. It's one of the most common and deadliest. So it's fatal. Okay, it's deadly. It is deadly. It means maybe fatal. But in Ireland, it's informal, this word deadly, and it means cool, it's fantastic, it's amazing, it's deadly, it's amazing, it's awesome. But in this situation, it's fatal, it's deadly, it will kill you. Okay, so deadliest is the superlative, and good vocabulary. You have probably seen, so here is the participle see plus the auxiliary have, so it's the, it's the present perfect. So you have probably seen thousands of cigarettes smoked in your lifetime for the duration that you have been alive, something perhaps not by your family. So that's a bit difficult. I don't know this answer yet. So you have probably seen thousands of cigarettes smoked in your lifetime, not by your family. I don't know. At the moment, I don't know the answer for this. I need to continue, and hopefully later I can return for the answer. Even is like incluso, even though, incluso aunque, fewer people, como menos gente, smoke. So people, they smoke today than, so fewer than, that's the comparative. Menos que, in the past. One, okay, this is a very, very good structure. Something, 1 every 4 adults todavía, still smokes. Okay, so the best answer here, I'm curious if you know the answer. I hope you have an idea, but we have a very obvious answer here. We say 1 in every 4. So it's like 1/4, it's like 25%. So 1 in every 4 is a very good structure, very, very interesting structure and very important. And it's the only possibility here. It's the best option, definitely. Okay, 1 in every 4 adults still smokes. And there are parts of the world where, that's the relative pronoun, smoking is increasing. Okay, most people, the majority of the people, most people, relative pronoun who, so this is a substitution for most people who become llevar a ser, regular smokers, started the past simple when they were young. Okay, this is the time, this is the moment to get the facts straight. A very, very good expression. So to get the facts straight is a good structure. You can also say to put the record straight, which is very famous, and that means to tell the truth. So if you put the record straight, you finally tell the truth and you eliminate the rumor and you tell your opinion. And then the other possibility is to get the facts straight, which means to say everything, the facts that are correct, and to say the facts that are true. Okay, so this is the time to say the truth. Smoking does no one. This is a difficult structure, and I'm curious if you have an idea for this answer, because it's very, very interesting, and take your time, try to select the correct answer here. For me, I have it very quickly because it's a phrase, and it's a very, very fluent phrase, and hopefully you have the answers, but I'll give you the answer now. So for example, it will do you no harm. That's one possibility. It will do you no good. Okay, so for example, this is positive. Exercising, running, exercising, it will do you no harm. Harm is like damage. Okay, so exercising, running will do you no damage. There's no bad effect to exercise. That's the positive structure. But the opposite, smoking, which is the negative activity, will do you no good. So it's a very, very good structure. The first one is the positive situation. There's no problem, there's no danger, there's no harm. It will do you no harm. There's no problem. But the second one, it will do you no good. So there's no benefit to the activity. And here, smoking does no one good is sufficient, but we need an extra word, and I think the best word probably is any. Okay, so that's the answer for number 3. Number 2, the answer was in. And the answer for number 1 was, I don't know, I'm not sure with 1 yet. Okay, it does no one any good, and it does a great something of harm to your health. Very fluent as well. Number 4 is a bit difficult. There's only one answer, there's only one possibility, one word, and there is a typical structure here for number 4. And we say a good, normally we have 2 possibilities. And again, maybe you want time to select your answer, but we say a good deal of harm or a good deal of damage. And the possible second option is a great deal of harm. And they're 2 very, very good structures, and it means a great quantity, a great amount of harm. And here it is the same, a great quantity of damage, of harm to your health. It also often means giving up. Remember, the verb to give up is to quit. Okay, so to give up is to quit. Or you can also say to give in, which is the same, to quit, to collapse, to give up, to give in, to quit. And here it means quitting a lot later in life, such as, for example, the chance, the opportunity to excel in sports, to be very good in sports, to be excellent, extra spending money, and even years of one's life. So you will lose a lot of your life maybe because you will have damage or harm because of the smoking. There's a lot of to lose. I think this is an error because normally a lot of, we say substantivo, a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of food. So I think we just say a lot to lose. That's the most typical structure. There is a lot to lose. Okay. Most smokers have a hard time, have a difficult situation explaining why they started. So most smokers have a difficult job explaining the reason, the motive, why they started and why they continue. They know it is harmful. So harm is the substantivo and harmful is the adjective. So they know it is dangerous, they know it is damaging, they know it is harmful. And many people, even incluso, know someone who, relative pronoun, has died, the present perfect, because remember the verb is to die, the past is died, the participle present perfect is has, or you have died, he has died, and the past perfect is had died. So just an interesting structure, but you need to be clear with the substantive. We say the death. So the death is the noun and the adjective is dead. Okay, so very interesting, very important family and very important details for all the vocabulary here. Okay, from a smoking related illness, illness is almost the same as sickness. So you can say illness, sickness, disease. These are all typical vocabulary, very, very good. Like lung cancer, lung is the pulmon. Okay, the lung is this part of the body where you breathe. And remember, the verb is to breathe and the substantivo is breath. Okay, so the verb is to breathe and the substantivo is the breath, the noun. So the pronunciation is very, very important. Lung cancer or heart disease. But something the same time, these smokers, remember this singular, that singular in position, these and those. So these smokers continue lighting up. That's a bit interesting. So to light up is to start your cigarette, basically start your cigarette, but we don't say start, we say light up your cigarette, and that means to start your smoking one cigarette. But to light up is to give the cigarette some fire. Okay, you can also say you light up the party, and the significance is you illuminate the party. When you arrive to the party improves and everybody is happy that you arrived. So you light up the party, you make everybody feel better. So that's a possibility as well. When you go out, salir, when you go out for a drink, take a break from work, or hear alarming news. So alarming news is a very good adjective, and it's like very worrying news, alarming news. Good vocabulary. You can say I am alarmed, and that means I am worried, I am afraid, I am really anxious. So number 4, I think, is deal, a great deal of harm. Okay, number 5 is, yes, what do you think for number 5? Now is your opportunity. So for me, I have an idea. I think it's at the same time. Okay. Some smokers even light up when they learn about the dangers, peligro, substantivo in the verb, of smoking, because they become worried. The reason people start smoking, the habit soon loses. Not sure, I don't know, number 6. Again, reason is the motive, people start smoking, the habit soon loses. I know number 7, because the verb to lose an attraction, we would say lose my attraction, lose your attraction, lose his attraction. But because it's cigarette and smoking, it loses its attraction. So it's the possessive adjective. Okay, so I think that's the answer. It loses its attraction. But number 6, I'm not sure at the moment. I'm not sure. So I'm having difficulty with 6 and I'm having difficulty with number 1. Okay, from the obvious health risks. So this is maybe typical. Risk is a substantivo. The adjective is risky. Okay, adjective, and the risk is the noun. And the verb is to risk. And we have a very informal expression. We say to risk it for a biscuit. It's just a joke and it's funny because of the sound. So that means to take a chance. Very informal, but it means to take a chance and to do something, to risk it for a biscuit, because maybe you lose something. But that's the expression, to risk it for a biscuit. Very informal and very funny. As you can see from my funny face, So that is possible as well, to risk and risky, but 7 is its attraction. So number 8, the clue is from, and the best answer for 8 is apart. Okay, apart from, apart from, apart from. That's very, very typical. Number 7 is its. So that's the answers. Most people would prefer, would rather, is possible, prefer, would rather, to avoid a room, evitar, that someone was filling with smelly smoke. Okay, and remember, odor, you can say an odor is a smell. Okay, an odor is a smell. And you can also say it lingers. You can say the smell is lingering, which means to stay. Okay, so most people would prefer to avoid a room that someone was filling up with smelly smoke. Back to number 1, because we need to try and find the answer. So smoking is one of the most common and deadliest habits in the world. You have probably seen thousands of cigarettes smoked in your lifetime. Perhaps, maybe however, but perhaps, maybe but, perhaps not by your family. I'm going to say but. I don't think it's correct. And number 6, some smokers even light up when they learn about the danger of smoking because they become worried. With the reason people start smoking, why the reason people start smoking, if the reasons. I don't know. We need a clue. So what's the clue? 6. Well, they're not going to give me the clue. So let's check the answers for the other ones. And the hint for number 6, we don't know. Okay, let's try B just for a test. No, they're not going to give me the answers. So we need to show answer 6. Hello, the answer for 6, no, not coming. Okay, whatever. So you used to tell someone that is very important. Okay, yeah, whatever. Okay, so the answer is number 6, whatever the reason. Yes, of course, it fits very, very well. So that's part 2. Now, I just want to try, obviously part 3 is where you change the form, but I want to try a little of part 4. And I just want to check Facebook that we are still live, because sometimes we have a lot of problems. So I think, yes, we are functioning, we are working, and that's good. Okay. 1 hour 46 minutes. I don't think that's correct. That's a long time we're speaking. I don't think we're on for 1 hour 46. Okay. Part 4, we have the first sentence and we have the second sentence. Your job is to write the second sentence with the same significance as the first sentence. Okay. In the advanced, you have a minimum of 3 words, including this word, and you have a maximum of 6 words. So this manual, this book, is too difficult for me. It's too difficult. It's impossible to read this manual. So what do you think is the best option here for number 1? Take your time. So we have this manual is too difficult for me, so we can almost eliminate. So we need something to substitute only for me. Yes, I have the answer. So for me, it's very clear. It's a very fluent, a very typical expression, but take your time and try to get this answer. Okay, well, you've had enough time. Okay, as far as I am concerned, that's the typical structure. This manual is too difficult for me. That's the structure, that's the rule. As far as I'm concerned, you can say as far as I know. Okay, as far as I believe. Very typical structures, and I think here, as far as I am concerned, this manual is too difficult for me. Number 2, Susan couldn't obtain, she couldn't get to the date, Sita, romantic date. She couldn't arrive, she couldn't reach to the date because of the heavy rain, because of the very, very torrential rain. She could not make the appointment. She could not meet the man or the woman because of the rain. So we have the verb prevent, and this is classic. So the heavy rain, so first we change the position. The first sentence, it's the active. We have Susan is the object, and the heavy rain is Susan is the subject, and the heavy rain is the object. But the second sentence, we change the position. So this signifies the passivo and the active. Okay, so the heavy rain well, take your time and you can try this answer as well yourself. And prevent is very, very important. The typical structure is to prevent someone or something from plus the ing. That's the typical structure. So for example, the weather prevented me from going. Okay, the weather prevented me from meeting. That's the typical structure. So the heavy rain prevented someone, and someone is Susan. Okay, and we need the preposition from. So prevented Susan from, and I think we already have the gerundio, getting to the date. I think that's the best answer. Good, so that's a typical structure, prevent someone from. Number 3, Sally gets on well with her father-in-law. So father-in-law is the suegro, I think suegro in Espanol. So if you are a woman or a man and you marry a man, the father of your husband is the father-in-law. Okay, you can say brother-in-law, you can say sister-in-law, you can say the in-laws, the family, and that means the group of the family, the group, the in-laws. Okay, so it's a very famous word, very, very important. So Sally gets on well. So the verb to get on well is to have a good relationship. So you get on well, it's como llevar bien, I think, to get on well with him or with her, to have a good relationship. Okay, and in this situation we have terms. So I don't know if you can think of the answer, but there is a very famous and very comfortable structure here. And the best answer is Sally, well, the structure is to be on good terms with someone. That's the typical structure. So you are on good terms with someone. So Sally is on good terms with her father-in-law. Okay, and I think that's the best option. Maybe very, but I don't think it's necessary because it's not appropriate. Because the first sentence just says well. In another situation, if you say very well, you would probably need to say very good terms. Okay, I didn't realize. Remember, the verb to realize is como darse cuenta. Okay, to realize. Excuse me. And I think in the United Kingdom, it's a Z, and in the United States, it's a Z. Sorry, an S. So there is a difference. I think in the United Kingdom, it's a Z, but in the USA, it's more a S. I think that's the difference. Okay, so I didn't realize what she would suffer in the first place. This is a very fluent structure, and I think you either know it or you don't know it. Okay, so this is a structure, very, very good. And the answer is, again, take your time if you want to try and guess, but we say little did I know. Okay, little did I know she would suffer in the first place. Yeah, I think that's the possibility. I was going to say how much she suffered, but little did I know she suffered in the first place. Or little did I know what she. I think that maybe is better. Little did I know what she suffered. So I need to write it. Little did I know what she would suffer in the first place. Okay. The pupils are living. So the pupils are the subject. Are living is the present continuous. Temporarily is the adverb. In is the preposition. A hotel. Okay, again, temporarily is the structure we need here. And there is a very famous structure to substitute for temporarily. And the structure is for the time being. Okay, that's the structure for temporarily. So for the time being, the pupils are living in a hotel is the best option. Okay. Number 6, it looks as if. That's a very important structure. It's like it looks like. Okay, it looks as if has the significance it looks like. And it seems something he's forgotten. He has forgotten. The verb is to forget, olvidar. And here's the present perfect, the participle plus the auxiliary. It looks as if He has forgotten about the meeting again. So about the meeting again, no problem. So we need to calculate. It looks as if he's forgotten. Okay, and I think the best answer is he seems to have forgotten again. Sorry, I think that's perfect. He seems to have forgotten. Of course, we might have some mistakes. I think it's inevitable. We have some mistakes. So everything is correct except number 4. So I didn't realize what she would suffer in the first place. Little did I know what she would suffer. Maybe just she. I think that could be maybe the best answer. No, hint, no. Little did I know. So the answer for number 4 is little did I realize what she. Okay, sorry. So when possible, you need to keep the best verb. You need to keep the same verb when possible. So little did I realize. Okay, tricky, but good. And as I said, here's the answer. Little did I realize what she. Okay, just to finish, and that's it. Well done. So that's part 4. And remember, these exams are tricky. So you've we didn't do part 3, but I think that's very, very good practice for today. That is just a little, well, obviously the web page here, you can see English Revealed. It's a good website. It's very interesting. But thank you for connecting to the class. I hope you enjoyed the webinar. This is material for the C1 for the advanced. We have other classes available. You can join some of the classes if you want, and hopefully you had a benefit today from the class. And it's good practice. It's very good practice. It does not matter if you're preparing for the exam. I think still it's just good practice to learn English, these exercises. Everything is free, as I said before, but if you want to leave a small contribution, a small donation, I will give you the information here. There's possibilities to make the donation by, for example, Bizum, PayPal, Bizum, Revolut, or the bank transfer if you want. It's only optional because I'm happy to teach for free for the moment. It's very, well, it's obviously not good for my career, but no, it's good for the moment. But if you want to make a donation, you are welcome. And if you want to join a group, you're very welcome to join as well. We have a few possibilities as well. So thank you so much for watching. Thank you for participating. I hope that you have a very good day, and I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you can stay connected. And yeah, thank you so much, and have a brilliant day, and thanks again, and talk to you soon. All right, bye-bye.